Alrighty, so we're back with another News of the Week episode, and I really think that this World Cup has really thrown off in terms of my News of the Week episode scheduling, because, whenever it's the off season, I do one on Wednesday and Saturday, but it seems like with the way that I've been doing it, like on a Monday, and now doing it on a Friday, and hopefully by the time the World Cup is over, I'm going to go back to the Wednesday and Saturday slot because, as I was expecting, as we get toward the end of the World Cup, and especially with the World Cup ending on Sunday, we're going to get a lot of news that is surrounding in MLS. And technically, from this past couple of days, we have tons of things to talk about. I mean, it's a wall of text here on the board, so let's actually get started before this video gets too long. And the first big topic we're going to talk about is the schedule. So I know there's been a lot of people that's been questioning when exactly the schedule is going to be released. I mean, they mentioned it was going to happen in December and that they will release the full schedule before the end of the year. But for a very long time, we've been waiting for these past couple of days and even these past couple of weeks of the fact that there hasn't been any news in terms of the schedule. That all changes today. And they kind of did it in a very weird way where the MLS Twitter basically tweeted out how there's like this admin calendar and it shows like all the goofy things the admin does. But one interesting thing that definitely catch a lot of people's eyes is December 20th, when it's announced that MLS is set to release the full schedule. And that what's also kind of interesting is that in years past, they actually release the season opener for every single team before they release the full schedule. Usually that's like about a month time. So it's kind of interesting that they decided to do it the release the full schedule right away on December 20th. And keep in mind, I have a feeling the reason why it took a little bit long for them to finally decide to release the full schedule is the situation with the TV deal, and that actually perfectly transitioned to my next talking point, and that of course is MLS have agreed with Fox Sports, Univision, TSN, and RDS to a linear TV rights. Now this has been a big discussion about the whole TV rights situation and the fact that Apple TV obviously have the rights for the broadcasting games, and that's going to be the case for the next decade. But then there's the question of these national television games. What happened to Fox Sports and ESPN? And there's already numerous reports saying that ESPN decided to drop out of it. And I think it's pretty clear that ESPN is not going to be broadcasting any more MLS game. And that's a shame because, I really think when I look at these national television games, I always tend to like ESPN national television game rather than Fox Sports and FS1 television game. And that's not because of the fact that they have had better commentary. I mean, John Champion, I think he's a little bit better than John Strong, and that if you compare it to Taylor Twellman and Stu Holding, they're kind of almost the same, except there's times where Taylor Twellman can be a little bit annoying to hear. But I think what really makes me like ESPN better than what Fox Sports does is that the quality of the games are much better on ESPN than it is on Fox Sports. I mean, whenever I see games on FS1, I always complain about how bad the product is, and it's no wonder why the TV rating in MLS has been so bad for many years. Because if you're not going to give a good product and you don't have a good quality, and you basically decide to kind of broadcast a game that looks like something out of the early 2000s, you're not going to get those audience that want to stick around. And that, again, for many years, I think ESPN did a much better job than what Fox Sports does, and it's kind of a shame the fact that now ESPN is not going to do it. And as much as I know ESPN has been kind of gone downhill a little bit, that's, I really think, mainly due to the programs that they had. They haven't gone downhill in terms of broadcasting live event. If anything, I think they have improved the way that they have broadcasting their games, and that ESPN will always known as the wild world sports leader of sports, and that losing ESPN, I think this is going to be tough for MLS. But at least they decided to keep Fox Sports and keep Univision, TSN, and RDS. TSN and RDS, of course, are the Canadian broadcast. Now, I was kind of surprised that they were able to keep Univision, because there was talk that they were not going to keep it, but I think this has got to be good news in a way where if you're a Spanish speaker kind of person who want to listen to Spanish commentary, then Univision is a must for them to keep. And as much as I know, for me, I'm not really a big fan of seeing Univision decide to keep its lenient TV rights, mainly because I have a feeling there's going to be more Twitter game, and if you thought that Twitter games were going to be over, oh boy, it seems like maybe it's not going to be with Univision decide to keep the rights to some of these games. So yeah, but overall, I think, because of the fact that we do have a majority of the MLS fan base does speak Spanish, and tap into that Spanish speaking market is definitely good for the league. I think it was key for them to keep Univision, and that it seems like that is exactly what they're going to do. But it took a while for them to figure it out, and I think by the time that they figure it out, it feels like that's when they have time to release the full schedule. And yeah, I'm gonna be definitely looking at some of the key matchup. And as always, as I always do every single year when the schedule is released, I'll look at the Quakes schedule and how they're going to look heading into next season. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, we got Montreal. They have acquired George Campbell in exchange for $900,000 general allocation money to Atlanta United. As, by the way, we're now getting to the meat of the news of the week, some of the transfer that has happened, and this is definitely the biggest signing so far, and that, Montreal definitely trying to boost their defense a little bit, and mostly for George Campbell, I think, doing his time with Atlanta, he didn't really kind of was given too much minutes for the team, and that I think this is just one of those cases where when you're a young player, you want to maybe move to another team to have a chance to get more minutes, continue to develop your career, and I think with him going to Montreal, that is definitely a good place to do. Though Montreal didn't pay very cheaply for that. $900,000 general allocation money is a lot of money, but if there's one thing I know about Montreal and what have they done in the past couple of seasons, spending big in terms of interleague trade, is that they have turned them into gems. So don't be surprised George Campbell could develop to be a very good player for Montreal and could be an absolute rock in that back line alongside with Kamal Miller, and that there could be a good feeling that he could maybe be sold off for some asset in the future. Now, moving on into the next news, we got St. Louis SC have acquired another player. This time they decided to sign Seattle Sounders striker Samuel Adderley in exchange for $200,000 general allocation money. Now, this guy, even though he didn't really play a lot for the Sounders, in fact, he was actually on loan with San Antonio FC last season, he absolutely teared up with San Antonio FC. I mean, he really had a breakthrough with the USL team, even guide them to winning the USL title. And that the other thing that I will say about him is that he definitely has some raw talent in him, and that he has a lot of potential to be a decent player, which is why I'm kind of surprised that the Sounders decided to let him go, and especially maybe he could be like the heir of Raul Ruidiaz once Ruidiaz potentially move on from the Sounders. But nevertheless, it's a big signing for St. Louis, and especially for a kid that has a lot of potential, and maybe you could say that this is now the time for him to make the next big jump to play in a top league. I think this is a good move for him in terms of his development career, but especially for St. Louis SC, where we'll see whether or not they're going to give him regular minutes and really kind of develop to be a guy that a lot of people are saying that he could. There's a lot of talent this kid has ever since he was with the Sounders Academy. Now, DC United have signed former TFC goalkeeper Alex Bono off a free agency. So, now it seems like there maybe is a little bit of battle in terms of the goalkeeping position for DC. I mean, saying that, I still think Tyler Miller is most likely going to be the starting goalkeeper for this team. But having Alex Bono as your backup is not a bad option. I mean, I know Bono has had a great season with TFC for the past couple of years. In fact, I think now that with TFC letting go of Bono, and I'm not sure did they also decide to do the same thing with Clinton Westbrook, it pretty much ends the discussion of the revolving door that's going on with the goalkeeping position. But I still think he's a decent backup goalkeeper, and that again, I think for DC, as much as they still have a lot to figure out in terms of their roster, goalkeeping seems like one position that they have got figured out. And again, for Bono, I know he'll be disappointed that maybe he'll just be a backup goalkeeper for DC United, but he could be a guy that, in case if Tyler Miller does get hurt again, he will of course get a chance to shine again. Now, the Vancouver Whitecaps have officially transferred Derek Cornelius to Malmo FF. Now, for those of you that don't remember who Derek Cornelius is, he's actually spent a year or two on loan to, I believe, the Greek Super League. Now, I haven't heard exactly how well he's done. Some say that he has actually done done very well, which is why I think this was a big move of him going to a Swedish Giants like Malmo FF. But yeah, overall, I think in the end it just kind of didn't work out for him with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and the fact that the Whitecaps at least are still gonna get some sum of money out of this is definitely considered a miracle, because he didn't really do well during his time with the Vancouver Whitecaps. But that being said, moving on in the next news, we got Victor Vasquez officially rejoined Toronto FC after departing the LA Galaxy. So this is something I kind of talked about, I think a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago. I talked about Victor Vasquez potentially going to go back to TFC, and it seems like that, of course, is the case. And again, I guess this is just maybe for nostalgia reason, because Victor Vasquez, we know during the time when TFC was at its peak, during the 2016 and 2019 period, he was in the center of that, and that some say that once he decided to leave TFC and decided to go to the Middle East, I thought that was pretty much it for him in MLS, only for him to come back to the Galaxy. And that now the fact that he decided to go to TFC, I mean, I didn't think that was going to be a case a couple of years ago, but alas, I guess the circle has now come to full, and that again, I think this is just more for nostalgia reason, and I don't think he's going to be a regular starter for this team. He's going to be like what he was doing with the Galaxy, a guy that comes off the bench and maybe be a super sub kind of player. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and I'm actually going to go pretty quickly in terms of the next couple of news, because the next 5 news are all players that have re-signed to a new contract. So we saw RSL re-signing their center back Marcelo Silver, CF Montreal re-signing goalkeeper James Pantemis, Colorado Rapids actually re-signed their defender Steven Beitashour, and then the Seattle Sounders, of course, re-signing Freddie Montero to a new contract extension, and the same goes for defender Marco Farfan. Now, with RSL re-signing Marcelo Silver, I mean, Silver, I always thought that he was an okay kind of defender, but, with the way that he's been there for a very long time, and especially, I think, these past year, he's definitely playing much better than he was a couple of years ago, where he was kind of a big liability for this RSL team. I think that's the reason why he deserved a new contract. And then, of course, CF Montreal re-signing goalkeeper James Pantemis, which means that the debate between Sebastian Breza and Pantemis is going to continue. Although I have a feeling he's probably going to get more minutes, because I think one kind of interesting trend that we saw last season with the revolving door in terms of goalkeeping for Montreal is that it seems like there's time where Wilfried Nancy likes to pick Sebastian Breza in big games, and then he let James Pantemis kind of play in a less important game. Well, now that it seems like Wilfried Nancy decided to move on to Columbus, maybe there's a good chance that James Pantemis have a chance to play in kind of bigger games, or play more games than what we saw Sebastian Breza did with Montreal last season. But nevertheless, that again, this is just clearly a sign that maybe he could get his starting goalkeeping spot. I mean, I don't know. There's just an interesting situation with the goalkeeping position for Montreal. And then Colorado, getting Steven Beitashour again. This is kind of surprising in a way that I thought Steven Beitashour had decided to hang up his boots. Like, I know he's been in the league for a very long time, but it's kind of interesting that he's still there. And I guess maybe just for a veteran and locker room presence, because Steven Beitashour, he's just such a leader in the locker room, and a good locker room present, and that I think the Rapids maybe decide to give him one last paycheck just to kind of get the leadership of some of those young guys from the team. And the same goes with the Seattle Sounders. Freddie Montero, although he's still scoring goals for the Sounders, you can definitely see that his career is definitely winding down. And again, just like the Victor Vasquez kind of sign for TFC, this is just simply for nostalgia and also some veteran presence. Freddie Montero will always be a legend for the Sounders, a player that I believe he's like the only player left that was part of the original Sounders team that came in to the league, if I'm not mistaken. And this is definitely not mistaken. He's still the guy that have scored the most goal for the Sounders, and is the all-time Sounders leader in terms of goals scored. So yeah, it's not a big surprise that he decided to re-sign, and also kind of a fan favorite too, because I know a lot of Sounders fans do like Freddie Montero, probably consider him one of their favorite player. And then of course FC Dallas re-signing their defender Marco Farfan. This is a no-brainer, because Marco Farfan is a guy that has really solidified that back line for FC Dallas, and a real big steal that they of course got from LAFC, and especially now that they're gonna have to rely him on more, because perfectly transition into the next talking point. We got Toronto FC report to agree to sign Matt Hedges off of free agency. Now, obviously, if you're an FC Dallas fan, it was kind of emotional to see Matt Hedges decide to move on into free agency, because he's been a guy that's been with FC Dallas for such a long time. Some will say that he's pretty much like a club legend with how many years he's been with the team. But yeah, knowing the fact that he kind of looked like maybe is slowing down the trend, especially with the way that Marco Farfan kind of started to be that leader in the back line compared to what we see with Matt Hedges year in and year out. Maybe that's why Dallas decided to not re-sign him. But TFC getting him, this is exactly what they needed to do, because again, they need some defensive help. This has been a case we saw last season, and that they didn't address it, and they paid the price with them not making the playoffs because of how bad the defense is. But now getting Matt Hedges, even though he's not the same guy as the when he was in his prime back a couple of years ago, he's still a proven MLS talent and a leader to this team, and that's something that this TFC team need in the back line, because when you look at this current back line for Toronto, there's really no leader in there, and I think Matt Hedges will definitely bring that leadership. Now, there's a rumor that the New England Revolution is close to signing the Portland Timbers, but there's now rumors saying that statement is completely, or the close to signing Portland Timbers midfielder Eric Williamson, and now it seems like that rumor is completely false. Now, we have heard that there's some displeasure between Williamson and the Portland Timbers, and I think he kind of fell out with Giovanni Savarese and the Timbers in general. The fact that he want to move to a greener pasture, so it's not surprised the fact that it seems like looks like the Timbers are trying to ship him around, and that there's definitely a lot of team that is trying to interest of getting him. Now, I think the reason why we haven't heard a lot of teams that have decided to get Eric Williamson is because I think some teams that have decided to try to contact the Timbers in terms of getting him probably have their bid rejected because it's too low. And again, I think in order to get Eric Williamson, it's gonna be a steep price. Like, it's gonna be somewhere at least $1.5 million general allocation money. It's going to be some of the most expensive kind of interleague trade we have ever seen. And some teams, they're not going to burn through that much money unless they're absolutely desperate in terms of having a midfielder. And also knowing the fact that Aaron Wilson has had some injury trouble in the past, that's another thing that maybe teams are not willing to risk. But yeah, this is going to be something that I think we'll be keeping eye on, because again, it's interesting to see the report saying that Eric Williamson doesn't want to be there anymore, and that he wants to move on to a new team. But now it seems like that's not the case, and we haven't heard too much about him potentially be shipped around to another team, or even rumors talking about a team that is close to trying to sign him. Now, speaking of the Portland Timbers, they have reported to submit a loan offer for forward Casper Junker from Urawa Reds in the J League. And, the J League is definitely a league that we started to see a couple more MLS players that have come from there. I mean, the most notable one is Thiago Martins, that NYCFC, of course, signed them as a designated player, which, again, there is that cardinal sins, the fact that you don't usually want to spend your DP spot on a defender or on a goalkeeper, but it kind of turns out to work well because Thiago Martins had a good year with NYCFC, and he of course came from the J League with Yokohama F Marinos. But yeah, this is kind of interesting, and in some way, again, when you look at the depth of the number 9 spot for the Timbers, it's not really that bad. I mean, they still have Nishgoda as their main number 9, and then of course they might have Felipe Mora and Marvin Larea in that spot. So I don't think that they really need another number 9 in there, especially for a guy like him. I don't know much about him. I don't know if he's gonna break out with it coming to the Timbers. We'll see whether or not if this is definitely a good idea. Now, speaking of number 9, it seems like Liga MX club Chivas is getting desperate in terms of getting a number 9 from MLS. So we have heard there was report that they have had their bid rejected when they tried to get Brendan Vasquez from FC Cincinnati, and it was like $7 million that was Chivas trying to offer to FC Cincinnati, which I think, in my opinion, it's a great, it's a good thing that FC Cincinnati did not accept that bid, because that's way too low to get Brendan Vasquez after such a breakout season that he has had with FC Cincinnati. So it seems like now they're chasing for Charlotte FC number 9 Daniel Rios, and that I'm not sure exactly how much they're going to offer for him. But yeah, this is kind of interesting because I think Daniel Rios did have a good season for Charlotte FC. Heck, I could have easily maybe picked him as the player in my video yesterday, talking about the best signings during the 2022 season in MLS for Charlotte FC. But yeah, if the right amount is there, I think they could definitely ship him off, and especially with the way that Charlotte FC have already been rumored to bring in a number 9. I think it's that guy called Enzo Copetti that they're going to trying to bring him in. This does make sense that they decided to maybe be shipped off Daniel Rios to somewhere else, but we'll see what's going to be the amount to do so, because Chivas, they're trying to lowball some of these MLS teams in terms of signing the number 9 player, and it's good thing that some of these MLS teams are just simply saying, yeah, no. Especially in Cincinnati case, $7 million. Like, I think Brendan Vasquez, with the season that he had last year and him getting close to break into the U.S. men's national team picture, he's at least worth $10 or $15 million in my opinion. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, there's a report suggesting that Papu Gomez is set to leave Sevilla, and there's actually a couple of MLS team that is actually interested to get him. Now, this is not the first time that we have heard rumors that Papu Gomez could potentially come to MLS. I believe last year we had the same discussion of him potentially coming to MLS, and I think that could be a good signing too, because he's a guy that has been appeared for this Argentina team. He have played, I think, a couple of World Cup games, especially in the group stage for Argentina, and even though he is definitely getting up to that age, he could be a guy that could come into the league and definitely have a big impact. And especially, I wonder if one of those clubs that is interested to get him is NYCFC, because again, that perfectly transitions to the next talking point, and that Maxi Morales looks like he is reported to close to signing a contract to return to Argentina and join Argentine Premier Division club Racing, and a team that he basically originally came from, and kind of almost like his boyhood club. And that, again, this is not a big surprise, because we've seen a lot of South American players tends to want to retire with their boyhood club, and that's kind of the case with Maxi Morales. And we knew that the time was eventually going to come where Maxi Morales potentially is either going to hang up his boots or he's going to go back to Argentina, where it all started for him. But it seems like it's sooner than what we expected. I think by the end of the 2023 season, that could be the time where Maxi Morales is going to move on. So why not potentially find a replacement in Papu Gomez, who when Maxi came into the league with NYCFC, it's kind of almost similar to the way when Papu Gomez is now potentially coming into the league, and he could definitely fit perfectly in that number 10 spot for NYCFC and could definitely find some success. So yeah, I think that could definitely make sense that they could be chasing to get him, knowing the fact that their longtime magician is potentially on his way going back to Argentina, doing his twilight of his career. But we'll see whether if that, of course, is going to be the case. But lastly, moving on into the last news in this news of the week, we have now officially heard that Morocco will be hosting the FIFA Club World Cup in 2022, and that the FIFA president Infantile has actually mentioned the fact that they are actually expanding the FIFA Club World Cup to 32 teams in 2025. Now, obviously, there's been mixed opinions about it, and that there's been a lot of criticism saying that the reason why they're doing this is because of pure greed and pure cash cow. And in some way, I think that, of course, is the case, because again, I guess FIFA want to make the Club World Cup to be a big thing, something bigger than what we see in the World Cup with all these countries playing right now. So that's why that, of course, is going to be the case. And I'm going to be interested to see how the format is going to be for when they do expand it to 32 teams in 2025, and also maybe this gives a more chance for a lot of MLS team that is going to be playing against a European opponent. I mean, I'm already excited with the Seattle Sounders going to the FIFA Club World Cup, being the first MLS team to do so, and there could be a chance where, if they of course do well in that competition, who knows, they might face Real Madrid in that Club World Cup. I mean, you never know. So yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to work out, and whether, in that tournament, is it going to be similar to what we see in the World Cup. I mean, I'm assuming that's got to be the case, because you don't just put a 32 teams kind of format and just kind of have a round of 32 to decide. I think they're going to probably do the same thing that they do with the current World Cup format. You're going to have these group stage game, and then you of course are going to be playing in the traditional kind of World Cup style, where 16 teams make it to the knockout round, and then we have the round of 16 and the quarterfinal, and so on and so forth. Now, again, the criticism of this is clearly for pure greed reason, but the other issue with this is that, well, when are you going to actually put this tournament going to be? Like, if you decided to maybe put it during the middle of the European calendar, that's not going to work, because there's going to be no teams are going to participate in this tournament, and probably going to miss a couple of league games. So my suggestion is that it's probably going to be near the end of the season, and that could be an issue too, because a lot of these teams, they have played a very long season. So the last thing they need is to play another tournament like this before preparing for the very next season. And we always talk about fixture congestion, and that in MLS that has been an issue, especially with MLS team that's been participating in the CONCACAF Champions League. But it's definitely a real issue in Europe too, and especially with the way how the Champions League is going to operate, and how there's a lot of teams that are now starting to play like 60-something games in a season, and that's just way too many games for a single season, especially if you don't account the off season that they have. So again, that's the biggest criticism in terms of the way that it's expanding to 32 teams. But again, I think we're going to get more detail in terms of how this Club World Cup is going to look like in the future. But for now, at least one thing we'll see is the format that they decided to use. It's probably going to be the same as we've seen before, and I'm very interested to see how far the Seattle Sounders is going to go in that Club World Cup in 2022 in Morocco. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. And as always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news that I put here on the board. And if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, as always, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.